Well, wasn't ready for that. Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective. Happy Tuesday. Happy Tuesday. Just gonna shuffle some of the guidance cards. Today is Tuesday Thoughts. And for today, I figured, you know what? We've been doing on the live the Affirmators decks. So today, I'm gonna pull one of each. That's right. I'm gonna do the regular one, love and relationships, which remember does not necessarily mean romantic relationships, it means just relationships across the board, and the creativity deck. So let's see, I'm gonna shuffle these. All right, however they landed, that's how we get them. And let's see here, let's pull some guidance cards first. Ooh, this is the one I always trip over. Love a person the way they need to be loved, not the way you want to love. Love is selfless, not selfish. I finally got that right. So, again, there's the card. Love a person the way they need to be loved, not the way you want to love them. Love is selfless, not selfish. And that's T. Gaskins. I really like that because love really is selfless, not selfish. When we try to change people, we try to make them be something that they're not, or who they don't want to be, or, into something we want them to be. Is that really love? Because, sorry, the moment I hit play, poof, there went my nose. But is that really love? We have to think about that. See, a lot of times we think that what we're doing is what's best for a certain person. But, in most situations, I'm pretty sure people know what's best for them. And I say most situations because there are some fragile situations where, a little extra guidance and a little extra love and kindness and guidance and tenderness and all that stuff is necessary. But in the majority of cases, when you try to change somebody to fit who you want them to be, to even fit a stereotype or whatever of what you want them to be, that's not really love. That's more selfless. That's not selfless. That's being selfish. Selfless is doing what's best for the other person. Sometimes you got to let people make their own mistakes, right? I mean, that's how the world works. Sometimes you got to let people make their own mistakes. So, next card. When times are hard, don't throw your anchor. You can't get through the storm sitting in one place. Good morning, baby sibling. Good morning, older sibling. Would you two plan that? Because you both came on literally at the same time. But when times are hard, don't throw your anchor. You can't get through the storm sitting in one place. You probably could, but you might get damaged. Either way, you're going to get damaged one way or the other. But if you try to sail through that storm, you're probably going to sail out of it. Whereas if you just sit there, you're just going to keep getting pummeled and pummeled and pummeled until you're just like, oh, forget it, just sink. Right? That's when you fall down the rabbit hole. And you don't want to fall down the rabbit hole, do you? No, you don't. So, let's see. What's this one? Spread your magic. That's right. Spread your magic. I like that one. I really do like that one. It's like, ooh, let me give that a little bit of pixie dust. Be the love you want to see in the world. All we need is love. Right? Be the love. The little flower child hippie woman. Be the love you want to see in the world. The world could use a big dose of love right now. So I think that's a really good card. No, I don't want that one. We just had that one. Don't be afraid to be magical, even if others might see you. Oh, see, that's two magical cards now. But don't be afraid to be magical, even if others might see you. So, see, look, I forgot to show you. Got my new ring. Actually, I've had this for a while. It is the Rainbow Topaz. That's my Claudette ring. For a while, I was so into these because of my Irish heritage. I'm not even sure if I ever wear them right, but whatever. I found it and I like how it kind of blinged, so I thought, I'm gonna wear it today. But so anyways, okay, let's see. Last card. It's kindness that draws people to you. Charisma. It's kindness that draws people to you. Charisma. This is kind of something I talked about yesterday, right? When we had that card come up. And I think it was the ideal partnership card. And, you know, one of the things I really, really did try to point out is how important, you know, it is to just let ourselves shine through, to let ourselves be seen, right? A lot of times we try to be something that we think somebody else wants. And that kind of goes back to the first card we pulled, where it says, you know, love is selfless, not selfish. When we try to turn somebody into somebody we want them to be, a lot of times you're going to get bored because you already know who you are. You already know what you're like. That's why sometimes it's fun when opposites attract, because, or I mean, and like I said, that's across the board. That's not any specific situation, but across the board. It's like, how many times have we met people that we met them on one thing that, you know, we may have in common, and then all of a sudden it's like poof, you know, you're just like, oh, okay, we really are different. But you start to learn things. You start to gather all these different, sorry. I know. I love my Claudia ring. Like I said, I'm so glad I found it, but it's so awkward wearing a ring. I'm just used to wearing the two. But, anyways, sorry. Wardrobe stuff. But, good morning, Eileen. But yeah, when we try to make somebody someone that they're not, you know, you're kind of taking away from them. And a lot of times, in my personal opinion and in my perspective, I think a lot of times we do that because we figure, well, maybe if they're more like me, they'll like me. But if somebody's sitting down talking to you, whether it's a friend or a love interest or whatever, that means they're interested in learning about you. Okay, they're interested in learning about who you are. So let your personality shine. Let your charisma just spark. Okay? So, like I said, I got 3 affirmators decks today. They've been kind of neglected lately. So, let's start with the regular one. The original. And then we'll go to, looks like love and relationships is next. And then creativity is last. So, authenticity. Seriously, okay, these are pre-shuffled, all right? I literally just pulled them from the top. And we had a couple cards already talk about this in the guidance cards. This is perfect. Authenticity, okay? Authenticity. Authenticity is the name of the game. Whatever comes up, I will feel it. Whatever needs to be said, I will say it. Whoever doesn't get it doesn't have to get it. But at least they know it because I've said it. And that's way better than leaving a passive-aggressive note about it. Okay, so just be yourself, all right? What this card is basically saying, in its own snarky, delightful way, or delightfully snarky way, is that when you're yourself, the people who are meant to be with you, around you, in your corner, are the ones who just know who you are. Not everybody's going to jive with you. Not everybody's going to, not everybody's going to see things the way you see things. And when that happens, I think it's just important to know that sometimes people come into our lives for a moment, sometimes for a lesson, and sometimes to stay. But you can't force that. Okay, sometimes people who come into your life that you think are going to be there for a while may end up just falling back into more of an acquaintance role in your life. But that's okay. Again, when we try to force things, it takes away from our own authenticity. It takes away from who we are as a person. And it's like this card says, whatever comes up, whatever needs to be said, whoever doesn't get it, oh well. Oh well. And that doesn't mean be mean about it, okay? Everybody's allowed to have an opinion. If you disagree and you're not going to ever find some common ground, just agree to disagree. And sometimes I find that's the best way because some people just do not like to be wrong. Some people just do not like to have their opinion ignored. But when you agree to disagree, all you're saying is, you know what? It's not worth fighting over it. So let's walk away. We're both right. All right. Neither one of us is wrong. We're just very heavily opinionated in many areas. And, sometimes those are good times to have those discussions, and that's exactly what it is. The difference between a debate and a fight, in my opinion, my perspective, is that, when you're debating, you're giving your case, you're making your case. You are stating the facts that you have, that you've researched, that, you've determined to be correct. And you're trying to sway the other side. When you're fighting, you're just telling them, you need to believe me, and that's it. Because I'm right, because I researched this. I mean, even my dad and I were talking. He's like, well, there's this one guy I met who was appraising my house, and blah, blah, blah. And, he's a researcher. And I'm all like, yeah, and I said, a lot of people research. He's like, well, his line of duty, that's what they do. They research. It's like, granted, I may not have published anything because I have super George McFly syndrome, but I research my work when I write. I have to. Because there's a lot of things I like to incorporate in there that I need to make sense. And not have somebody say, well, that's not right. And, with the internet, you can find anything, right? You can find information across the board. So, oh my goodness. It's just like, just because somebody researches something, it's like, where are they researching though? Are they researching everything from one end to the other? Or are they researching in that particular area only? And if you only go to specific sites that are going to tell you what you want to know, so, it was just kind of funny to me. I mean, and that's not the greatest example, but, because we didn't really go into detail, but my father and I, in certain areas of our life, are very, very different in the way we think. Mostly politics. But we used to be similarly minded, but yeah. Anyway, so let's go with the Affirmators Love and Relationships deck. All right. I always love this one. So, okay, Laura says a friend of ours was an appraiser. No, I remember our friend who was an appraiser. But I mean, everybody researches. If you have a job, you basically research. Okay. I mean, that's the point. Just because you research one thing doesn't mean it has anything to do with your job. That's my point. I mean, I don't think that's in my opinion and perspective, that's not the greatest argument. Well, that's their job, is to research. So, they must be good at it. Lawyers do the same thing. Doctors do the same thing. Research analysts do the same thing. I was an administrative assistant for 20 years of my life, and I had to do a lot of research. So, and when I didn't, and I had downtime, I read up on things. So, it's just how passionate you are about something, how much you're willing to read. And here I'm going to challenge people with this one, okay? When it comes to, being who you are. One of the great things about being who we are and being authentic to ourselves is also understanding somebody else's opinion. You don't have to agree with it, but just Google a subject. And if something disagrees with you, read it anyway. Okay, see the perspectives, because I'm telling you, a lot of times what happens is what everyone over here is thinking and what everybody over here is thinking is, somewhere in the middle. That's where all the truth is, and my camera's backwards. So this is actually my right side and this is my left side. But this is what I'm saying. I think a lot of times we don't want to find any common ground in the middle, because sometimes, people get so frustrated. They just try to find something to just let off steam. And it always seems to be the same subjects, right? Religion and politics. I remember when I was growing up at the table, religion and politics were off the table. No religion, no politics. Although I don't remember my parents talking much about politics, but religion did come up a lot. But it was no. So anyways, the next card, love and relationships. Remember, Love in relationships doesn't necessarily mean a romantic relationship, okay? Relationships across the board. All right. So vulnerability. Ooh, vulnerability. That's a good one. I allow myself to talk about my feelings. Now remember, guys, these are like delightfully snarky. All three of these decks across the board just have a little touch of, a little seasoning of sarcasm in it to kind of keep it light, right? I allow myself to talk about my feelings without fear of external judgment or internal drama. When I express my feelings, a couple of funny things happen. I feel like a kindergartner. And number 2, everything gets lighter, easier, and filled with the comforting glow of honesty. Hey, no wonder kindergartners seem so fun and stress-free. How isn't that interesting? We just had the card from a different deck that all these have been pre-shuffled a couple of weeks ago, right? We're just pulling from the top. Authenticity. This card just backed it up. Sometimes it does take a bit of vulnerability to be authentic. And I say that because there are a lot of times in this world where we're afraid to speak our truth. We're afraid to come out. We're afraid people are going to feel sorry for us. 2, we're afraid people are going to judge us. 3, we're afraid people are going to fight with us. And if they don't fight with us, we're afraid they're going to fight with somebody in our comments. Or, 4, we don't know how to speak up. I mean, I'm sure there's a billion more numbers I could come up with. Good morning, Carrie. For instance, Carrie has fibromyalgia, all right? I hope you don't mind me sharing that, but, she does. But she posts a lot about it on her page, which I think is great because it's called advocacy, right? I post a lot about mental health. I post a lot about chronic pain, which fibromyalgia falls under, but because older sibling has CRPS, which is also known as RSD. And RSD is basically the grand poobah of all chronic pain. And it's not to minimize or invalidate anybody else's chronic pain. RSD is actually noted as the worst chronic pain you can have. It's basically fibromyalgia on steroids. But whatever chronic pain you do have, it's all important. It's all valid. Your feelings are valid. Your emotions are valid. And I love the fact that Carrie, she goes to work. She creates beautiful pieces of work. And she also has flare-ups along with, I think you have RA too, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, if I remember correctly. And I mean, that's a lot of pain. That's a lot of pain. But they push through it. So it's a physical pain, but it also causes an emotional pain. But they allow themselves to be vulnerable enough to share this. And I say vulnerable because a lot of times when people don't understand a lot of these things, they tend to jump on the poor you or why, just snap out of it kind of wagon, right? There never seems to be an in-between that often. It's either like, oh my God, you poor thing. Or, possible lupus. Good Lord, girl. I'm going to have to put you in like a super Reiki bubble. But they have found their authenticity. They've found their, older sibling just reminded me, although she didn't finish that thought. CRPS is actually known as the suicide disease because, the pain gets so bad that a lot of people just can't handle it anymore. And so it doesn't always end well. Fortunately, older sibling has a very high tolerance for pain. This girl broke her arm one time and just kept tooling around the world, or broke her nose. One of the two, I can't remember. Just kind of like, yeah, I'm fine. Turns out she broke her arm. Oh, my chronic pain girls. Now the other one's calling herself a hot mess. You're fine, girl. You're fine. But no, like I said, there is a level of vulnerability that you need to have to be authentic. And, to go one step further, baby sibling, right? Baby sibling's a widow. And there's a lot of times when she opens up herself to be vulnerable. Check her out on YouTube, Simplifying Mom. She talks about being a widow and dating. I mean, how hard is that, right? I mean, it's not like you walked away from somebody. Somebody passed away in your life. that you still loved so greatly, that you still had so many hopes and dreams left to go through with, you know. Or Eileen is a very different situation, but she was a single mom, you know, and of twins and a son. So those are 3 kids. I mean, I'm sure the dad was involved. I don't know a whole lot about that side, to be honest. Sorry, Eileen. I just want to be inclusive here. But you know what? But she raised them to be their own authentic selves. I've talked about this before in the perspective how when she put her twins into school, she made sure they were in separate classes because she wanted them to develop their own identity. And in a way, when you're twins, you're together since, you know, the womb, right? And then you start school and you're like, whoa, what's happening? So there is also a level of vulnerability there. And I would say the vulnerability is more on the mom because she is opening herself up to, you know, potential disaster with separating kids. But it turned out great. And, you know, they may look alike, but they're very different in a lot of ways, her daughters. And I mean, it's amazing to see. It truly is amazing to see. And, you know, and with baby sibling and her kids, there is a level of vulnerability that, you know, comes with being a single mom and a widow because you're grieving together. And grieving doesn't have a time period. So, you know, you may have these ebbs and flows where you're like, woo, we're flowing like everything. And then all of a sudden, poof. You may either be hit by low tide and diving into the shallow end or high tide and getting pummeled by a wave. Right? The stuff I've shared, it creates a level of vulnerability. But vulnerability is also a strength. I read a quote the other day that says it wasn't, and I beg to differ. Because a lot of times when you're hurting and you're suffering, you don't want people to feel sorry for you. So you shut down, you hide from the world, you put up this huge wall with a big sign up front that says, I'm fine. And how often is that the truth? I mean, I'm fine has become such a term that we use now that the majority of the time we have to sit there and go, no, really, I'm okay. You know, it's like, I mean, and it feels like even if you say I'm okay, you're like, no, truly, I'm fine. Don't worry about me. Seriously, I'm being honest. But a lot of times we've said I'm fine so many times and people have seen through that. And it's kind of like a boy who cried wolf in some ways, because now you actually mean it, but people are still questioning it. Okay, so Carrie says, vulnerability is scary. Feeling and to be vulnerable, you have to feel a sense of trust around you. I agree 100%. With a lot of the trauma I suffered in my life, being vulnerable, it was like a 4-letter word to me. And then I started to believe, and I realized that the only person I truly need to trust in this life to be vulnerable, or to get that strength to be vulnerable, is myself. I have to trust that I know that I'm in charge of my feelings. I have to trust that I know exactly where my emotional well-being is standing. And in those moments, it allows me to be vulnerable enough to share my story. I have learned that you do not have to carry your pain in order to carry your story. And by that I mean emotional pain, because I know, good morning, Auntie. So, vulnerability is really, in my opinion, a strength, because it is something that you learn. It's a muscle that you build. It is an emotional muscle that you build, and it is an emotional muscle that you control. I mean, if you're just learning, or if you're just starting to lift weights, you're not going to go from the 10-pound weights to the 100-pound weights right away, because you're probably just going to be standing there going, oh, I can't lift this, right? You build up to it. It's a process. It is truly, truly a process. It is a muscle that you have to keep strengthening and building on. And as you build it, you find that you open up in ways that you would have never thought you would have before. You know, I mean, Carrie, I'm not sure how much vulnerability you allow yourself to give, but I will tell you this. I love your posts because I love that you're honest. I love that you share these things. She posted a couple weeks ago a picture of her just laying in bed. It's like, this is what chronic pain looks like. But she also posts her crafts, and she also posts herself going to work, because that's also what chronic pain looks like. Laying in bed was a flare-up. And flare-ups aren't pretty. They're pretty sad. And I've seen it firsthand with older sibling. You know, and the only way sometimes to get people to understand the situations that we're in is to show them firsthand what it looks like. Whether it's chronic pain, being a single mom, going through traumatic struggles, being a widow. When we allow ourselves a certain level of vulnerability, we're also reaching out to people who may not know that this is what they're feeling or what they need, but when they see it, they're like, God, thank God I'm not alone. You know, I was very proud of baby sibling for posting her vlog on being a widow and dating, because there are people out there who are afraid. You know, when my dad first started dating after my mom died, he got a lot of shit for that, because everybody didn't think he waited long enough. It's like, what the fuck do you have to wait long enough? I mean, why is there a time limit? My parents were married for 47 years. Seriously. Pretty sure I know that he loved her. But he has a life, and he was ready to move on for whatever reason. That could have been because it was hard being alone after 47 years, or being with somebody for 48 years. It's very possible that, you know, he just wanted companionship. It's very possible that he thought, you know what, hey, this is my life now, so I'm gonna dip my toes in the pool, see what happens. And I remember when he told me, I've shared this story before in previous perspectives, he was so afraid to tell me. I mean, he was truly afraid to tell me because he thought I was just going to flip the hell out. And I'm like, okay. I told him, I said, and it still stands today. I told him, I said, the only thing I'm upset about, so I knew you'd be upset. I'm like, let me finish. I told him, I said, the only thing I'm upset about is that you've literally been single like just 4 or 5 months, and you already have a date. I said, I still don't have a date. Right? So I mean, I'm trying to make that funny now because I still don't have a date. Still single AF. But no, I'm sorry. I was just trying to be funny there. Sometimes you just got to laugh at, you know, your situation, right? But the people around us, not everybody, some of the people around us were just like, you know, it almost felt like the whispers, you know, like, pss, 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 pss. And when they showed up in public the first time together, I mean, they're not together anymore, but when they showed up for the first time in public, it's kind of like, there were eyes. And finally, and my dad was a little upset about it. And I remember writing a huge rant about it on Facebook because, you know, first and foremost, I'm always going to defend my parents. Especially my dad, since he's the one I have left. But I finally told him, because he's like, yeah, some people are commenting and blah, blah. And I told him, I said, you know what? The only person whose opinion should matter is mine. If you really care. I said, really, my opinion shouldn't even matter, because you have to do what's best for you. And the rest of us will fall in line. But I said, if you're looking for outside opinions, the only one that should matter is mine, because I'm your kid. And she was my mom. And I said, and I support this 100%. I mean, a lot of people thought, wow, you're a way better person than I am. No, I'm not a way better person than he is. When you've been single for a long time, you understand how lonely life can get. But I'm surrounded by friends. Okay, I've never been married. So, but I'm surrounded by friends. I'm surrounded by family. I have people check in on me, you know, just texting every day, just, hey, I'm alive. And just the people, you know, you normally text every day. But when you spend so much time with somebody, you know, I mean, he spent more than half his life at the time with my mom. Or almost half. Yeah. Well, I don't know. Yeah, more than half. I mean, they got married very young. They were 19 and 21. Okay? And like I said, I came a long way later. 6 years later. But I don't know the thought process, and it's not meant for me to know because it's not my life. But I am proud of people who, just kind of step up and allow that vulnerability to come into their life to show how hard it is sometimes to make it through certain things, but to still keep that smile on your face. And you know what? When you have an emotion, it's okay. It's valid. We're not going to smile every moment of the day. I'm learning that. I'm learning that this dead feeling or this numb feeling I had inside is literally just being content. It's just, that's, I guess, the normal way people feel when they haven't been carrying around the anchor of dread for like 40 years. It's just, it's that, it's not being complacent. It's just that being content. It's just like, being in a little inner tube, right? And you're just floating nicely on this calm, body of water before it either gets fun because you're going crazy with the waves or they start pummeling you. So anyways, right. So let's get to the last deck. All right, creativity. Let's see what this one brings up. Let's see if it matches. Oh, I'm so curious. Discernment. This is funny. I was watching something yesterday and somebody actually used these in their reading, and I am dying because I'm dying. I was thinking about this card this morning too. Discernment. When I'm elbow deep in my process, I'm not afraid to add some gritty to the nitty and embrace the value of discernment. Stepping back, I can look at my work with the honesty of a true friend and be really real about what's working and what isn't. Would I let my bestie walk around with a booger hanging out of their nose? No way. So get ready, current project. Mama's coming at you with a tissue. So, how can I work this in to fit authenticity and vulnerability? Well, you have to choose to be both, right? You have to choose to be both. You have to, I'm trying to think of how to put this, and my brain is escaping me in every sense of the word. But, I think a lot of times, we are afraid to speak up. We are afraid to say things. I mean, how many of us have literally let people we know just walk around with that booger in their nose, right? But we don't want to do that. It's a choice. It's a decision. And if we don't make the right ones, it can get embarrassing. It can get, I don't know. I'm struggling with this because I'm trying so hard to figure out how to fit this in to being authentic and and vulnerable. It's like, I don't know. I don't know. It's I know, Shelley's speechless. How often does that happen? It is that you're making a judgment. Okay, you're making a choice. You're deciding on what you want to do, and you have to decide. Am I ready to be vulnerable? Do I want to be vulnerable? Do I want to trust? I mean, Carrie brought it up earlier. You have to have a level of trust in order to be vulnerable. And that's true. I mean, how often are we vulnerable with new people? Right? I mean, we may be our authentic self, we may be true to our charismatic nature, but we don't share a lot of things until maybe later. We don't open ourselves up in a lot of ways until maybe later. When you gain that trust of somebody, when you gain that perspective of who they are, when you discern who they are, their judgment, your judgment of them. I think I agree. Terry says, I think we have to be willing to be our own best friend and say, hey, I got a booger hanging out of my own nose. Yeah. And that's if you're in a mirror. Only if you have a mirror. I think it kind of does. I mean, I love these cards because they do kind of go to the extreme. But I agree. I know. I'm sorry, guys. I don't know why I'm so speechless. Maybe this is something I need to work on, because I'm not always that trusting of myself. I'm not always that kind, honestly, to myself. I tend sometimes to, let me see here. I tend sometimes to be too hard on myself. And I think because of that, I don't always trust my judgment. And I mean, we've heard the term a million times, when using the word discernment. And I guess you just have to really judge the situation. You have to make that choice of whether you want to be authentic or vulnerable, And one of the things I was talking about previously in this topic was about baby sibling posting her vlog. And like I said, I was very proud of her because it's hard, and if you're still friends with people, it may get harder because, you don't want to feel like you're going to offend anybody, right? But sometimes the person we have to be the truest to is ourselves. It's about being authentic. And I know some people don't like the term be your authentic self, because a lot of people don't know who they are. They think they do. But being your authentic self is being that vulnerable person. It's being that person that's wide open and not afraid to share their feelings. Growing up, that would have been very frowned upon, because I was raised by a generation who didn't show a lot of their feelings. Some did. And when they did, a lot of times they were criticized for it, or a lot of times they were told they weren't strong. But I'm a part of a generation now and going forward where a lot of us aren't afraid to show our vulnerability anymore. A lot of us aren't afraid to be authentic. I remember there was a long time when Gen Xers were called lazy. And now you see there's this huge Gen X movement now where they're saying, oh, you think we're lazy? We were latchkey kids. Okay, I wasn't quite a latchkey kid because I lived too far away from school. So one of my parents had to pick me up. But I mean, I had to stay in the after school care program because my Catholic school was a couple miles from home. My parents were going to make me walk that far. So, but I was always one of the oldest because my parents worked until 4:30, and so, but I would help. I would do what I have to. But I got some flack sometimes from people. Oh, you have to go there. Or even some people in the program. It's like, oh, why are you here? Aren't you too old for that? And it's like, well, I'm not walking 3 or 4 miles home. Are you crazy? No. But it didn't matter to me. A lot of other things mattered to me because I got teased a lot growing up. I got bullied a lot growing up. But a lot of times because of that, I was afraid to be vulnerable. But around these younger people, I was always vulnerable. Because they didn't judge me. They just saw me as, oh, hey, it's Shelly. There was no judgment from them. Maybe they were too young at the time to judge. They were just like, oh, yay, we have another older person here to look after us. And I mean, that doesn't make me a great person. It just means I was trying to be helpful. And you try to wrangle kids in and you teach them what you know. And because of that, I was able at times to be authentic. But then, we start to grow up and we start to worry about what other people say about us. And we start to change. But as adults now, with all the stuff that we have to go through and all the things that, people have had to go through, even the millennials. Right? I mean, they're not that far behind us anyways. But people a lot of times like to make assumptions about these two sets of groups. Lots of people like to make assumptions about baby boomers. I have to tell you, one of the terms I hate nowadays is, oh, you must be a boomer. You know what? I learned a lot for baby boomers. Older sibling is technically a baby boomer. Her baby sibling and I, we're all 15 years apart. Okay, I know it's weird, right? I'm like right in the middle. But I have to say, I don't like it when we label people in a negative way. You have all these younger kids going, oh, you must be a boomer. It's like, you know what? We learned a lot from them. And not only that, these kids are the children of people who saved our world. Maybe we don't like fighting because it's rough, right? I mean, nobody likes war. War is a terrible thing, as you can see on the news, how awful it can be. But there's a lot we learn from them. And there's possibly a lot they learned from us. Learning how to be vulnerable. Learning how to know that, you don't have to hide who you are, or you don't have to hide your vulnerability to be strong. Strength comes in so many different shapes and sizes. I always talked about how my mom worried that I wasn't strong enough. And she was worried when she was dying that I wouldn't be strong enough. And it was actually in my grief, healing my grief over her and Sissy, and eventually another friend, and just a lot of people. But the healing from my grief started with those two, because they passed away 10 months apart. Two very, very strong-willed women in my life. And I realized after they gone how strong I was. And to be honest with you, there are times when I actually can say I think I was stronger than they were in a lot of situations. So I think what we need to look at here is just don't judge yourself. Okay? Be your authentic self. Use your discernment. Use your judgment. I mean, it's kind of like a spidey instinct in a way, right? Or as my friend calls it, the Peter tingles. I thought that was so cute. But don't be afraid to be vulnerable. Okay? If somebody slaps you with your vulnerability, don't close down. Just know that person is probably not meant for your life for very long. They're just meant to just keep on walking. Or you might teach them that it is okay. A lot of times people are mean because they're afraid of their own feelings. They're afraid of their own thoughts. So they project. They transfer their emotions onto somebody else. Okay, so don't be afraid to be authentic. Don't be afraid to be vulnerable. And use discernment, use your judgment when necessary. But never second guess yourself. Okay, never second guess yourself. Because you are an amazing person and you are worth it. And life is sometimes going to throw you curveballs, but sometimes you just got to learn how to hit them. Alright? If you strike out, just keep learning how to hit them. So anyways, tomorrow is Self-Care Wednesday. Probably going to just do the same decks that we've been doing for a while because they're kind of fun. They actually have been pretty decent, right? But yeah, tomorrow's Self-Care Wednesday. I will see everybody back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time. Facebook Live, it is public, so anybody can watch, or I do upload them to YouTube and then share them to Twitter after. The Monday through Thursday ones. I don't generally share Friday to Twitter because I don't think anybody really cares about oracles and stuff like that. But if you are interested, you can go to the Aloha Perspective with Shelly Marie on Fridays and catch it there. Or, like I said, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Standard Time or Pacific Daylight Time, whatever. 8:30 a.m. Southern California time. That's when I start Facebook Live. All right. So again, I'm sorry for kind of losing my thought process there in the end. The magic seemed to just float away. Good morning, baby bear. You're just in time for me to end. So anyways, yeah. So I know baby sibling's she's probably sitting here going, I told you not to apologize on your thing. These things do happen. Clearly I have to work on using my own judgment. So I think that's, I don't know. I'm literally at a loss for words. So I'm just going to end it there because now I'm just struggling and being dumb. But, oh, sorry, baby sibling. I know, I take that back. But yeah, she just says, yep, bro. Anyways, okay. You know what? I'll be honest with you guys. Something's stuck inside of me. Something's trying to come out. And I can't, I don't know what it is. But you know what? If I figure it out today, I will definitely let you know tomorrow. All right. So, have a great day. Tomorrow's Self-Care Wednesday. I hope to see you back here tomorrow. We will use the self-care deck to start out with as the guidance cards, and then we'll go to the stress reduction essentials. I think that's the deck. So have a great day. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for hanging in there when I lost my thoughts, and I will talk to you tomorrow.